Well, it was a spectacular show of force to mark the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. Thousands of troops marching in rhythmic lockstep and a showcase of military hardware, including missiles and modern fighter jets. All of it watched on by leader Xi Jinping. Then there were the guests, the leaders of Russia, North Korea, Iran and Dan Andrews. Joining us live this morning, the former DFAT Australia-China Council scholar Andrew Phelan. Andrew, good to see you today. So, the whole event lasted for several hours, but what was the key takeout for you?
Well, it's a time of anniversaries, Peter. It's 50 years since Jaws came out, and it reminds me of that scene where Chief Brody looks at the shark and goes, "We're going to need a bigger boat." My feeling was, we're going to need a bigger military. It was the biggest military parade in history. Quite staggering, actually, and it was laden with symbolism. We saw the three flags, the flag of the party, the flag of the PRC, and the flag of the PLA, with the characters Bai or 8-1, which is the date of founding of the PLA back in 1927. But I think it's also important to understand that the conflict from China's perspective, they don't call it World War II. They call it the Zhangre Jianzheng, the War of Resistance against Japan. Because for them, it started in 1931 at the Mukden incident in Manchuria, which was occupied. They then moved south into Beijing, Shanghai in 1937, and then into Nanjing. And I was a student in Nanjing at the Hopkins Nanjing Center, and our professor took us to the Nanjing Massacre Museum. And what the Japanese Imperial Forces did at that time was unspeakable atrocities. And it's, these things are important to remember, and it's important to acknowledge China's suffering. Having said that, there's a movie out that's done $400 million at the box office in China. It's now showing here, called Dead to Rights, which is about the Nanjing Massacre. And it's being used to a large degree to stoke nationalist sentiment and in a sense of preparing the country for war. And, you hear the national anthem, which is all about braving the enemy's fire.
So that's what this is all about. I'm sure there was a domestic audience, but was Xi Jinping's goal here is to get the world to take notice that, he means business, particularly when it comes to Taiwan?
Yeah, absolutely. So we saw unmanned platforms, subsea, laser, electromagnetic, hypersonic, new mobile platforms. The message there is that we're getting on par with the United States. We're doing it very quickly. And you think of it, there's a new book out called Breakneck by Dan Wang, which is about China's engineering capability. They've got 17 million engineers. The place has largely been run by engineers in the last several years. There's a great book at the moment on how Apple trained up a lot of China's engineers, and that stuff is now coming back to bite them and bite the US. So the message there is, if you're thinking about intervening in a Taiwan contingency, it's going to cost you, and it's going to cost you big time. Particularly, we saw expansion in the rocket force. We saw flags of the cyber force for the first time marching in the parade. So the speed of modernisation is
let's get to a few other points just while we've got time. Got a couple of minutes left, Andrew, but let's go to the text of the China's president's speech. Part of it is here: the Chinese people are not afraid of violence. They are self-reliant and strong. But also, we will adhere to the path of peaceful development and work hand in hand with the people of all countries to build a community with a shared future for mankind. There's a contradiction of sorts. What did his speech say to you?
There is. There's the kind of Beijing rules, which is, we've got a different model. We want ours to be the global standard. We want people to jump on board. I don't think that's going so well. He has, a handful, the stands, the Central Asian countries were there, Lukashenko, Belarus, Cambodian leaders and so on, and other authoritarian regimes. The bulk of the world GDP is not in that part of the world. It's still in Western Europe, Japan, Korea, and the United States. That's true. And they have the ability to outscale them. So I think that's an important takeaway.
And just finally, let's go to the guests, because Modi was there for the dialogue earlier in the week, but he didn't go to the parade. Bob Carr, he was a late withdrawal as well, for whatever that's worth. Dan Andrews stayed, though. What are your thoughts on who was there and what they would get out of it?
Yeah, well, two ex-New Zealand PMs were there as well, John Key and Helen Clark. I don't know if they went to the parade, but I think a really important concept to take away here
Another book.
is that China...
How many books you got there?
I got a pretty big library, Peter. But a really important concept is China influences at a sub-national level. We've seen a big New York Times investigation on that for the state of New York recently. And you've got to look at what's Daniel Andrews doing there. And his last trip to China before this was very opaque. He met with the leader of the propaganda department. And my concern, as soon as he stood down, Xiao Chen, the ambassador, was down here, photo op with Jacinta Allen. She's saying our relationship with China is deeper. It's based on trust and respect and so on. And my concern is that, China's built a lot of white elephant infrastructure, non-profitable infrastructure. It's involved, some of its companies are involved in the big build. My worry is that we don't have transparency on those contracts. The state government here is saying they're commercial confidential. That's rubbish. They're public works. And my concern is that the nexus between, at a state level, but Victoria, maybe WA as well, and China, I think that's a concern.
All right, we will have to leave it there. I'm out of time, Andrew. It'd be good to see you as always.